You're good enough for dog food. Come on, say bow. I never thought I'd be subjected to such humiliation. Although our marriage is still fresh, I've tried to comply with this woman's demands in my own way. But it seems all for naught. She might be an alien or something. That explains everything. I don't know the language aliens speak, but I no longer wish to talk to her. My name is Allison. I'm a 32-year-old office worker. Perhaps influenced by my game-loving older brother, I've been fond of games since childhood, especially role-playing games that immerse me in unreal worlds. I've made many friends through social media, which I started a few years ago. One of them is my husband, Carmine. We both liked the same game and shared favorite characters and spells. When a new game came out, we'd go buy it together. After years of such companionship, we became conscious of each other and decided to get married. Carmine's parents are Stanley, who is often away on solo assignments, and Bianca, a housewife. Stanley, due to his busy work, comes home only a few times a year. Carmine's grandmother, Stanley's mother, also lives with them but has been suffering from Alzheimer's for a few years now, and recently, her hearing has declined, making conversation difficult.
Grandma got forgetful all of a sudden when Dad went on his solo assignments. It must have been quite a shock,
he said. Bianca takes care of the grandmother-in-law. Since Carmine lived alone early on, his parents-in-law's home is just Bianca and the grandmother-in-law. I wondered if I would have to take care of a stranger who wasn't even my parent someday. However, both parents-in-law are healthy, and it seems that the opportunity is still far off. I was completely at ease. Until that one phone call. One day, it was my day off, and after finishing all the housework I had accumulated, I was playing my favorite game. Then, an unfamiliar sound rang out in my room. What's that sound again? Oh, a ringtone. I rarely get calls, so I forgot my own ringtone. Seeing the displayed name, I tensed up a bit. A call from Bianca? It was the first time I got a call from my mother-in-law, Bianca. And though nervous, I thought something might have happened, so I hurriedly answered. Hello? You're late. It's common sense for a working adult to answer promptly when a superior calls. The sudden sarcasm made me instinctively want to hang up, but I refrained. Sorry, I'll be careful. So what can I do for you today? As if. You're free on your days off, right? Playing with that incomprehensible toy? Do some work. Fulfill your duties as Carmine's wife. Told to visit the parents-in-law's home on my next day off, Bianca hung up. After the call, I was in a daze for a while. Why must I be subjected to sarcasm from a call I rarely get? I thought about ignoring it, but she is Carmine's mother, after all. Maybe I'll just listen to what she has to say. I decided to think that way. Of course, I reported to Carmine that night.
I'm really sorry. It's probably going to be a hassle, so you don't have to go.
It was honestly comforting to hear Carmine say that. Still, it's infuriating. At times like this, there's a place I always go to after work. Hello? Oh, if it isn't Allison, something bothering you? Susan from the pottery school greets me with a smile and those words. I start with a light heart, but now I'm completely engrossed. Susan is about the same age as my grandma, but is still strong and willing to listen to my life problems. She's like a mom to everyone. Of course, pottery is fun, but I come here to talk to Susan. Listen to this, Susan. I got a rare call from Bianca, and it was a parade of sarcasm. You must be free, she said, or do your duty as a wife. I didn't expect to be told such outdated things. Susan always listens to my complaints without a frown. Just ignore that pointless Bianca. There's still such old-fashioned people around. People who say such things are often lenient with themselves. My son's wife is just like that. I may not be blessed with Bianca, but I'm surrounded by kind people. It naturally makes me want to try harder. On my next day off, I did as Bianca told me and headed to the parents-in-law's home. When I parked and headed to the entrance, Bianca was already standing on the porch. Oh, scary. I struggled to stay calm and greeted her. Good morning. The norm is to act 30 minutes earlier. Don't keep your superiors waiting. She said that, and though I had just arrived, I already wanted to leave. I can understand this for work, but why must I be scolded for her inexplicable convenience? And a 30-minute early visit can be inconvenient for the other party, which I don't want to do. No, but it's still 10 minutes early. As I tried to answer, I was shouted at. Don't talk back. Am I in the military or something? I looked up, resigned. I will never open my heart to this person again, no matter what happens. And I will never take care of her in her old age. Even if offered a large sum of money, I refuse. Really, you're late for the appointment. Well, I'm off now. Bianca said this and was about to leave, so I stopped her. Wait a minute, you call me here without explanation, and I don't understand. Well, I'm going out until tonight, so you will have to come here on your days off from now on and do the housework. And take care of the person holed up in the back room, too. After saying this, Bianca left in her car. I've never met someone so hard to communicate with. She seemed kind when I met her with Stanley and Carmine, but that wasn't the case at all. I thought about going back without doing anything to avoid being scolded again. But more than that, I hadn't met my grandmother-in-law yet. Bianca had told grandmother-in-law, but since she didn't understand, she decided on her own that I didn't need to attend the family wedding. By the way, we only had a simple meal and didn't have a wedding ceremony. Later, Carmine and I were supposed to greet her together, but our days off didn't match, and embarrassingly, we never made it. Excuse me. As I opened the entrance door, a shocking scene unfolded. Too dirty. It wasn't quite a garbage house, but it seemed to be a matter of time before it became one. The room was overflowing with things, and a mountain of laundry, washed or not, spread across the floor, and the kitchen sink was full of dishes. Dust had accumulated in the corners of the room, and it was visibly appalling. The last time I came, the room was clean and tidy. What on earth happened? This is too terrible. As I was thinking this, I heard noises from the back room. Ah, grandmother-in-law. Thinking I should greet grandmother-in-law, I went to the room. Excuse me. Oh, since the day Bianca called me, I've been going to the parents-in-law's home as told. I've come to understand that Bianca probably spends every day out and returns home late at night. She doesn't seem to take care of the house or grandmother-in-law at all, and while she arrogantly tells me to do my wife's duties, it's clear that Bianca isn't fulfilling any herself. Maybe she got carried away because I obediently listened. I'm relieved that Carmine, who always plays with toys, finally brought home a wife, but after all, a wife is a stranger. I guess you're a free housekeeper. I was loudly told that once. In this day and age, harassing a son's wife is just unacceptable. Of course, I reported all of Bianca's actions to Carmine, who kept apologizing every time he heard about them. You don't have to go to that house anymore. That's what Carmine told me. He even said he would complain to Bianca himself, but I told him to wait because I had a plan. I continued to visit the parents-in-law's home because I was worried about grandmother-in-law. When Carmine saw that grandmother-in-law and I got along well, he was very pleased. After a few months of those days, while I was cleaning the parents-in-law's home as usual, Bianca said, There's a memorial service at the end of this month, and people will gather, but make sure you don't say anything unnecessary, okay? I smiled and replied, Of course, Bianca. Bianca seemed not to be completely satisfied with my obedient self. The memorial service was for Carmine's grandfather, the grandfather-in-law's death anniversary. He had already passed away by the time I married Carmine, but he was said to be a gentle and kind person. He got along very well with grandmother-in-law, and they used to travel together. Carmine told me they always held hands when they were out. Grandfather-in-law died of cancer, and grandmother-in-law took devoted care of him. But the parents-in-law did not help at all. It's just unbelievable. There's a lot of preparation to do, so make sure you come early, okay? And I think you know what I mean. Bianca said that, and I cheerfully responded, Yes, I'll act 30 minutes early. Yet she scolded me. Your voice is too loud, be quiet. I thought about throwing the TV remote at her, but managed to hold back. You can talk like that now, but just wait, get ready. I looked forward to the day of the memorial service. The long-awaited day of the memorial service. I was told to come 30 minutes early, but I went an hour early. Sure enough, it seemed to be an inconvenience, and Bianca, showing her true colors, came out of the entrance angry, saying, "You're too early. There's such a thing as too much." Honestly, when I saw her face, I thought she was a monster. I quickly cleaned the room and prepared the tables when I heard a cheerful male voice say, "Good morning." Heading to the entrance, I saw the staff from a famous local steakhouse standing there. I had been there once with Carmine, and the meat was tender and quite delicious. However, it's not kind to the wallet, so it's not a place I can often go to. As if saying I was fine, Bianca pushed me aside and began talking to the handsome staff in a slightly high voice. "Good morning. Nice weather today, isn't it? Ooh-foo-foo." I saw someone say ooh-foo-foo for the first time and went back to preparing. "Hey, hurry up and carry the food that arrived early," I heard Bianca's annoying voice. While thinking, yes, I headed to the kitchen. There I noticed something. Bianca, there's one meal short. Is this a mistake? Shall I call? When I said that, Bianca, with a mean smile, said this. "It's not a mistake. I never prepared a portion for you." I was stunned, never expecting to be treated like this. "After all, today people are gathering, and you, my son's wife, won't have time to eat. How shameless." Feeling like I had been called a greedy person, I finally felt indignant. Maybe because I didn't talk back, she felt good and said, "A housekeeper like you is good enough for dog food. Come on, say bow." Then she put the dog food left over from the dog they used to have in the parents-in-law's home in front of me. At that humiliating act, I couldn't help but laugh. I would never understand this woman, not in a lifetime, because she must be an alien or something. I have no intention of talking to someone with whom I can't communicate. Thinking that, I shouted at Bianca in a language I didn't know, pretending to speak alien. And for a moment, Bianca's face showed a hint of fear at my sudden behavior. "What? Are you out of your mind? Are you mocking me?" "Yes, I guess so. I've been putting up with it for quite some time now. I don't like living in a house with someone as nasty as you. I don't know what you're upset about, but will you be satisfied if we get a divorce?" I won't allow a divorce. Then I'd have to hire another housekeeper. That would be a waste of money. With that, Bianca came at me, trying to grab me.
"Stop it! How disgraceful!"
Turning around, there stood Carmine and my father-in-law, Stanley, along with Stanley's brother and his wife, who lived far away. Bianca hadn't noticed them because of our argument, but it was already time for Carmine and the others to arrive. I don't know how long they had been watching, but Bianca became completely subdued, perhaps because Stanley intervened or from the shock. Then it was time for the priest to come to the house. The memorial service ended modestly, and it was time to eat. The grandmother-in-law stayed in her room, saying she wasn't feeling well.
"I haven't eaten this in a while, but the steak here is really good."
While Stanley said that, I was bustling around, bringing drinks and such.
"Allison, come eat too. You don't need to do all this."
"Thank you. Come over here." My aunt-in-law, Cindy, also called out kindly. "Thank you, but it seems there is no steak for me." I pretended to be dejected as I said that, and when Cindy asked, why?" I replied, "I can't possibly say it. Please ask Bianca." Cindy glared at Bianca, who might have been frightened by her gaze, and started saying something ridiculous. "Oh, I ordered the wrong number of steaks. I told Allison to eat my portion, but she declined, saying she was fine. I'm so lucky to have such a nice woman marry into the family." Bianca was sweating profusely, and her eyes were darting around. "Is that so?" Cindy looked at me worriedly. "Yes, that's right." Behind Cindy, I could see Bianca's face completely at ease. That face was so comical, I struggled to keep from laughing. Bianca is always so kind. She points out when I'm lacking social manners. Today, instead of steak, she prepared this for me. I said that and brought out the dog food Bianca had handed me from the kitchen. Bianca turned pale at my unexpected action.
"What's going on? What have you done to my precious wife?"
Carmine asked, but Bianca remained silent. In the quiet room, Stanley spoke up.
"Well, you know, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? Allison is married now, so—"
Stanley started joking, and Carmine looked like he was about to grab him. Thinking it better to avoid an assault charge, I decided to call my ace in the hole. "Susan?" Everyone was surprised by my loud call. Then, from the back room, a cheerful voice replied, "Yes?" Out came Susan, grandmother-in-law. It turns out she's the Susan from pottery school. The day Bianca first called me over, we were both shocked to see each other. Never imagining that the grandmother-in-law would be Susan, we finished the housework at the parents-in-law's home together laughing. The parents-in-law's home is a two-family house, and Susan's living space was very tidy. It was obvious that she wasn't sick, but Bianca never suspected. Since Bianca returned home late at night, we went out to eat and for walks. I enjoyed the time spent with my beloved Susan, which is why I was happy to visit the parents-in-law's home. Susan had made me promise not to tell the in-laws about our relationship. I was angry at Bianca's unreasonable words, but knowing it would end someday, I could bear it. Susan didn't attend the memorial service because she didn't want to see the parents-in-law's faces. Susan always prayed for grandfather-in-law's happiness after his death.
Why, Mom, don't you have Alzheimer's?"
Stanley asked, puzzled. "That's just something this woman misunderstood on her own." With that, Bianca, who had been shrinking herself, was glared at. "I wanted to live alone with my husband, but right after getting married, you started living with us for the sake of he's your son, and you and your husband indulged in luxury with the money saved from rent." Susan said this, and Stanley looked uncomfortable. "I thought I'd be free when your transfer was decided, but then this woman said she would stay here, and it was the worst. I couldn't even talk about kicking her out because you were never home. And I pretended to be hard of hearing because I didn't want to talk to you. And then you just assumed I had Alzheimer's. It's laughable." Bianca's face turned bright red. "What I couldn't forgive the most was being treated as absent from the grandchildren's celebrations. Well, I was very happy when I found out Allison, whom I'd get along with, was the spouse of my grandchildren." Susan said that and smiled at me. Bianca, not finding this amusing, suddenly started. "I'm sorry. Allison was always so cold to me. I was frustrated, and that's why I did such a prank today. I truly regret it. But if Allison had been kinder from the start, then I wouldn't have been too—" I had no intention of playing along with such a charade. "All the precious words you've given me up until now, Bianca, I thought I'd listen to them at home, too." I said that and pulled out a voice recorder I had hidden in my pocket. With each playback, Bianca's face grew paler, and the faces around us grew more severe. Susan and I had planned to expose everything on this day when the relatives gathered, regardless of the steak incident. After listening, Cindy started to laugh. "You talk about social common sense, but you've never worked a day in your life." Apparently, Bianca had never worked and had lived a life of leisure. After the children grew up, Bianca began to go out more, causing constant arguments with Stanley. Stanley himself was apparently a habitual adulterer who returned home late every night, participating in school events for the sake of public image, but otherwise maintaining a fake relationship, as I had heard from Carmine. Carmine also hated it and left home as soon as he graduated from high school. "That's why, pack your bags and leave right now. This is the precious home of my deceased husband and me. I will never allow you to return, and you too." Susan said this and glared at Stanley. "You have another woman out there, don't you? Do as you please, trash son. I'm cutting ties with you." Stanley left the house as if fleeing, perhaps hit too close to home. "And Carmine, I know you're busy with work, but come and visit once in a while. I understand if you don't want to, given such foolish parents." Susan said this to Carmine with a slightly sad look. "Then we're heading home." As Carmine and I left the house, Bianca, looking furious, chased after me. "Wait, clear up this misunderstanding. If I'm thrown out of here, I'll be in trouble." I thought if that was the case, she shouldn't have harassed me to begin with, but it's too late for her words now. "I don't understand. Why don't you work? You seem to have a great understanding of how to be a respectful member of society," I said sarcastically and got into the car. She was shouting something outside, but I didn't care. She might as well regret the life she's led as she pleases. As for the former parents-in-law, after being kicked out of the parents-in-law's home, Bianca showed up at Stanley's place where he was working alone. But as Susan predicted, Stanley was already living with his mistress, and Bianca was quickly discarded. Furthermore, it turned out that Bianca had also been having an affair, and even worse, with a married man, and she was sued for damages by his wife. Since both our former parents-in-law had been unfaithful, the damages were sort of offset, but Bianca would likely continue to pay the mistress's husband. Stanley might lessen his burden if he sought damages from his mistress, but to me, they are strangers, and it doesn't matter anymore. They were a match in a way, despite the fake relationship I had heard about. Carmine has no lingering feelings for his former parents and intends never to see them again. I feel the same. As for us, we've decided to live in the parents-in-law's home where Susan lives. The house, once full of unpleasant memories, was transformed as we disposed of all the furniture Bianca had collected, and made significant changes to the interior, making it feel like a completely different home. Susan is surprisingly energetic for her age, but I'm more than willing to take care of her if she ever needs it. Furthermore, next year our family will be growing. I'm looking forward to living a happy life with my beloved family from now on.
Our grandson is coming home, so let's have steak again today. Rhina, hurry up and order the catering. At my in-laws' house, we order steak through catering once a month as a treat. All right, shall we eat? What about mine? How many times has this happened now? Every time they don't prepare a steak for me. My mother-in-law just lets me place the order, and once I've fulfilled that role, there is no steak for me. My mother-in-law is very assertive, and I just can't stand up to her. I guess I'll just have to put up with it again. Just when I was about to give up,
Grandma's really mean, isn't she?
What? My name is Rhina. I'm a 38-year-old housewife. Having no particular talents, I used a matchmaking service and met my current husband, Craig. I wanted to get married but was struggling to find a good match, so the matchmaking service was my last hope. I was almost resigned to giving up, but then I met a man who shared my love of movies. That man is now my husband. We hit it off on a movie date, had a smooth courtship, and got married. My husband, being 2 years older, was kind, but that kindness disappeared when our son was born. Our marriage had grown cold when two changes occurred. The first was our son's IQ, which suddenly soared as he grew. By third grade, he could handle subjects at an 8th grade level. Moreover, our son, who loved reading, was able to speak 5 languages by 5th grade. However, his intelligence led to bullying and he stopped attending school. Thanks to an opportunity to study abroad suggested by his teacher, he's now studying at Cambridge University in England. The second change was moving into my in-laws' house when our son went abroad. My husband's work location changed, so we moved into his parents' house, which was closer. Having become a housewife after marriage, I had no choice but to follow my husband. Little did I know this would be the beginning of a difficult life. My mother-in-law was the only one living at the in-laws' house when we moved in. My father-in-law is in the hospital due to illness.
I am not feeling very well, so I need you, young one, to work hard for me.
That's what I was told on my first day living in my husband's family home. But my mother-in-law doesn't seem sick at all. She even seems more energetic than me. How old are you, mother-in-law?
64 this year.
My husband answers my question with a hint of annoyance. Really? But she doesn't look sick at all.
In this house, whatever Mom says is the law. Don't you dare question her or you'll be in trouble.
Upon hearing those words from my husband, I suddenly felt incredibly alone. I could clearly sense my mother-in-law's hostility towards me, but I never thought my husband would abandon me like this, even though our marriage had gone cold.
Come on, Rhina, get to work. You'll be staying here, so first clean the floors with this mop.
With that, I was handed an old mop and bucket. Looking around, I noticed dust accumulated everywhere. It was clear the cleaning hadn't been thorough. Can I start using the vacuum cleaner? I thought to tackle the dust first.
Don't rely on modern tools. Just do it all with the mop.
Despite having a vacuum cleaner in the house, my mother-in-law refused to let me use it. I gave in and obediently replied, "Understood." Could you do that part while I do this one? I thought we would clean together, so I asked my husband, but my mother-in-law interrupted with a contemptuous look.
What are you talking about? Craig and I will chat and rest here. You clean by yourself.
But the house is unnecessarily big with 6 beds, 3 baths. It was impossible for me to clean it all alone.
Also, do the dishes that have piled up, please.
I was already at my limit with the floor cleaning, and now she was adding more demands? I can't handle it all. The house is too big.
Oh, really? Then I'll allow you to use the vacuum for $10 every 10 minutes. How's that?
That's too expensive.
You can't even pay $10. What a poor daughter-in-law.
My husband didn't lift a finger to help me, even as I was being mercilessly belittled in front of him.
Moreover, he said, "It looks bad to squat and talk while mopping."
When it was just the two of us living together, the lack of conversation was manageable, but since coming to his parents' house, my husband's cold behavior had turned into something like psychological abuse.
Let's have steak today. I know a delicious place.
With that, my mother-in-law called for catering. My arms ached, but I somehow finished the cleaning and dishes. And right when I finished, the catered steak arrived. I worked hard for this. I was beyond excited for the steak. Ever since I heard that we would be ordering steak, I put extra effort into cleaning. My mother-in-law said it was going to be an expensive steak, and I couldn't help but wonder just how delicious it would be. My stomach seemed to growl just thinking about it.
Reina, please pour some water.
My mother-in-law's tone was commanding and cold, but I could endure it all for this moment. I absolutely love steak, especially filet mignon. Once I finished pouring the water, the ordered steaks were lined up on the table. Oh, wow, it looks delicious. Thank you, mother-in-law. I thanked her with joy.
Huh? What are you talking about? There's no way there's any for you.
My mother-in-law responded with a puzzled face. What? What do you mean, there is none? I felt my heart sink to rock bottom. I cleaned the floors as you asked, and I have done the dishes. I said weakly, only for my mother-in-law to retort,
That's only natural. It was merely a token of appreciation for letting you stay. Think of it as paying a fee through your actions. Did you think you could live here for free?
I had moved into my in-laws' house due to my husband's work, and it was already nothing short of hell. Yet I didn't have the money to live on my own. Since getting married, I only received $200 a month for allowance. After buying clothes, cosmetics, and necessities, I cannot save. My savings before meeting my husband were spent on moving expenses and my father's surgery. I thought I would at least be secure as a housewife. I realized how naive I had been. So what about my dinner? My mother-in-law seemed completely unprepared for that question and began pondering.
Let me think.
I felt hurt and questioned my word.
There are some noodles around. You can eat those.
The table held high-quality steaks, and my meal was noodles? This stark difference told the story of my place in this family. They both ate their steaks in silence, never offering me a bite.
Reina, wash this knife and fork thoroughly.
The only time I came close to the steak was when I washed the knife and fork after they were done eating. From the very first day, I endured horrible mistreatment, and I was mentally and physically exhausted. One day, during this never-ending cycle, a call came from our son who was studying abroad.
"Mom, long time no see. Hey, you were good at handcrafts, right?"
What's this all of a sudden? I wouldn't say I'm good at it, but I do embroidery as a hobby.
Really? Handcrafts are trendy here in America now, and I was reminded of your work. There are specialty stores here, but even looking back now, the quality of your embroidery is on another level.
My son praised me during this rare phone call. How long has it been since someone praised me? I couldn't help but feel happy and even shed a few tears. Thank you. Only Leo would say something like that to me. My emotions must have transmitted to my son because he said,
"Mom, is something wrong? Your voice is trembling."
What? My son is learning psychology in school, it seems. He said he has perfectly memorized all human unconscious actions that tie to mental states. Already a high IQ son, He's been further honed by receiving quality education. Now, they say his IQ is even measured at 200. Even as his mother, I can't believe he's the same person. Thanks to that, he has completely seen through my heart.
Did something happen with Dad?
I remained silent for a moment, then gathered my courage to tell my son about the situation at my in-laws' house. I felt shameful as a parent, but I was grateful to have someone nearby to talk to. So, it's tough every day. When I finished my story, he said,
I'll come home once. It's our vacation and I have saved up some money from my part-time job.
I insisted that everything was fine, but he wouldn't listen and my son is coming home soon. Time flew during our long overdue phone call, and an hour had passed. Feeling rejuvenated, I thanked my son and hung up. When the call ended, my mother-in-law approached me with a glare.
That's quite a luxurious long phone call.
The energy I gained from my son slowly depleted as I dealt with my mother-in-law. I'm sorry.
More importantly, we're having a block party at our house tomorrow. Take care of the shopping.
With that, my mother-in-law handed me a long list of items and left. At the end of the note it said,
Make a reservation for steak catering.
Then came the day of the block party. People started to gather afternoon, and before I knew it, there were 10. Everyone calls my mother-in-law the president.
Come on, Rhino. What are you doing? Serve juice to everyone,
she ordered. Mother-in-law who used me no matter who was around. Lauren, don't overwork the girl. It's pitiful. You should treat your daughter-in-law more kindly. Some did stand up for me against my mother-in-law's harassment, but my mother-in-law wasn't pleased and threatened.
If you keep talking like that, you're no longer members of the block party. No more high-end steak after this. Is that what you want?
Upon her threat, they said, That's too much. We love this community. I'm sorry,
Rhina is my name?
Yes, Rhina. We can't go against the president, they said. And the support they offered was quickly withdrawn by my mother-in-law. It seems she doesn't just control this house, but the whole area. There is no way I, a mere housewife, can win against this woman. The steak I had ordered arrived, and my mother-in-law began happily arranging it on the table. Since she had chosen the steak, it was surprisingly luxurious. The side dishes were a parade of high-end ingredients like caviar and truffles. But even here, my mother-in-law lectured me.
You think you can eat such good steak as a wife? You're 100 years too early. You won't have any this time either.
My mother-in-law bullied me openly in front of everyone. The pitiful glances from those around us pierced me. No one could oppose my mother-in-law. I glanced at my husband, who was quietly eating his steak alone. But surely a little bit is fine, isn't it? I was envious of not being able to eat the steak and slightly resisted my mother-in-law.
Of course it's not okay, but I'm not a demon. I bought beef noodles for you this time, so I'll give them to you,
she said, handing me a serving of noodles. Upgraded from ordinary noodles to beef noodles? But what I wanted to eat was steak. I finally lost my patience and raised my voice. Mother-in-law, this is too much. I prepared everything for today's block party, and yet you treat me like this? So is this true? You prepared all this by yourself, Rhina? Lauren, couldn't you be a little kinder? With my words, everyone's eyes turned to my mother-in-law.
You all better not get carried away, or you'll be treated the same as this useless son's wife.
My mother-in-law countered with determination. Everyone lost to my mother-in-law's intimidation, and no one said anything back.
Rhina, you remember what I told you before. You must obey mother in this house.
But
then?
My husband suddenly raised his voice. I was surprised by that voice, and my body flinched.
Obey mother's instructions quietly.
The atmosphere became silent at my husband's words, and the people who had been supporting me eventually said,
Yes, Lauren is right.
Filling the room with voices defending my mother-in-law, frustrated, I ran away from the scene and locked myself in my bedroom. I wonder how many hours had passed. It seems I had fallen asleep. When I realized the block party had dispersed, and it was night. When I looked at my mobile phone, there was an email from my son.
Mom, I'm heading your way tomorrow.
Apparently, my son was already in America staying in a hotel. I went back to sleep. The next morning, as I went to the living room, my mother-in-law was making breakfast.
You really got carried away yesterday, didn't you?
I'm sorry. I informed my mother-in-law, who attacked me without even a greeting, about my son.
Oh, Leo, if he's coming back, we'll have steak today.
It seems my mother-in-law, who hadn't seen my son since he went abroad for study, was eagerly looking forward to seeing him again. She had already ordered catering from our usual steakhouse, and then the evening came and my son returned home. The dinner table was laden with steaks, even more luxurious than usual.
Leo, eat as much as you like.
My mother-in-law was quite pleased. As always, I was treated like a servant.
Thank you, but where's Mom's portion?
My kind-hearted son noticed that there was no steak for me and was worried. At that question, my mother-in-law attacked.
Oh, it's fine. Raina is always like this. More importantly, try this. It's made with beef from Nebraska.
My mother-in-law looked happy to be reunited with her grandson after such a long time. But my son responded with unexpected words.
I don't want it. Why didn't you prepare Mom's portion? This is discrimination, isn't it?
He said coolly. My mother-in-law was startled by this unexpected reaction. My husband also looked at our son surprised.
What are you talking about?
Grandma, I have heard everything from Mom. You really look down on her, don't you?
My son, who had returned home, had grown up strong and confident more than I knew. Feeling antagonized by him, my mother-in-law began to panic.
Oh, what? What did you hear? I didn't do anything.
Grandma, you're mean, aren't you?
What? What did you say?
You're always looking down on Mom, right? You want to feel superior, but people like that usually lack confidence or have nothing to be proud of. That's why they attack others to feel superior. It's a mean personality.
Leo, just because you're a child doesn't mean you can say anything.
Then what about a grandma who can't tell right from wrong?
My son's counterattacks didn't stop and my mother-in-law was increasingly cornered.
That's true, isn't it? Everyone has an equal share of steak, but Mom has nothing? This is clear discrimination. Normally, this would lead to a fight. I have seen it happen many times.
My son was looking at my mother-in-law with cold eyes, far beyond his years. Seeing those eyes, she became a little timid and quieted down. But my son's momentum did not stop.
You're panicking. Your eye movements, habits, and amount of sweat tell the story. I'm studying psychology at Cambridge University, always at the top of my class, and I assist a professor every day. I see many types of people, and Grandma, you have a typical dictator personality.
Me? A dictator?
My mother-in-law seemed to have taken some damage, making a face. She probably never thought the day would come when her grandson would say such things.
You're sweating a lot from the agitation. Are you panicking, Grandma? Maybe no one has ever spoken to you friendly before.
That's...
My son was completely in control of the conversation's pace. I was simply watching the two of them. My husband was doing the same.
But there's really nothing to it, is there? I wonder why everyone was so afraid. By the way, Grandma, do you have something you're good at?
Good at? Well...
You were snapping at Mom even though you have no talents. That's not cool. Mom has some, though.
That's mean. Do you have to say that?
My mother-in-law was gradually backed into a corner, losing her ability to articulate. My son showed no mercy to her.
Mean? What you did, Grandma, was far meaner. Plus, Mom is skilled in embroidery. It could even sell in England.
I was surprised by my son's words. It was the first time my hobby was appreciated like this.
So, what's your point?
Don't you get it? Mom has skills beyond others, but you, Grandma, have none. Yet, you try to belittle Mom and assert dominance? Is it because you can't accept someone being superior knowing that you can't do anything? Grandma, you are the weakest here.
My mother-in-law was at a loss for words, her mouth agape. She must have been struck by the undeniable truth. She couldn't say anything in return.
And you, Dad? What have you been doing all this time? Why didn't you help Mom when she was struggling? Well, you couldn't stand up to Grandma, could you? I don't know if it's because she's your mother, but if so, why did you marry Mom?
My husband, too, was stumped by my son's legitimate questions and had no reply. Of everyone present, my son was the calmest and wisest.
In the end, both you, Dad, and Grandma are just bullying Mom without any real content. You just want to feel superior and look down on others. I don't want to be involved with such people.
My son's relentless words made my husband and mother-in-law's faces more rigid than ever before. Whether it was frustration at not being able to retort or something else, they tightly clenched their lips. My son's words hit home accurately and there was nothing they could do. I was simply delighted that my son had grown so wonderfully, and I couldn't help but gaze at him. Then my son said to me, "Mom, let's leave these two and move to England together." "England? But we don't have the money, and finding a job there will be tough." As I replied, my son, who had been serious until now, began to smile.
Actually, one of my classmates has a father who's a Hollywood actor. I became friends with him, and when I showed him pictures of your embroidery, he praised them. Then his father heard about it.
"Really? That's wonderful," my son continued.
So his father wants to buy your work and then use a spread with over 200 people now waiting to buy your pieces.
"What?" As I expressed my surprise, my mother-in-law and husband also listened to my son's story with astonished faces. My son went on.
Mom, I'm sorry for taking the liberty of arranging this, but they want you to open a store with your handmade crafts. The kid's dad will handle all the expenses, including the cost for relocation, so let's turn your hobby into a job in the UK.
My son's eyes were sparkling with excitement. Indeed, for something I do as a hobby, people around me often praise my finished works. I never dreamed that this would become my job. And in England? No less, not America. I fell silent for a while, pondering. The three of them focused on me as I thought,
"Oh, Rhina, you're not really going, are you?"
You can't be serious, right?
My mother-in-law and husband asked me with frantic expressions. I thought hard about it. My son was right. If I'm going to be harassed at my in-laws' house anyway, I want to make my hobby my job. Moreover, the already frosty relationship with my husband has worsened due to his cold attitude. I felt like I didn't need to be here anymore, and I made up my mind. I'll give it a try. I accepted my son's proposal. My son was overjoyed at my answer, and my mother-in-law and husband wore shocked expressions. I decided to say it plainly. "That's it. I'm divorcing you. I'm tired of being with you and being oppressed by your mother. Let me be free." With that, my husband slumped and said, "All right." My mother-in-law was ranting until the end, but I didn't catch any of it and don't remember. And so the divorce was finalized without fuss, and I was freed from my in-laws' house. Now I'm busy in England preparing to open a shop. I insisted on making all the products by hand. This may be the most fulfilling time in my life. Later, I heard from my son that right after I arrived in England, my former mother-in-law stumbled at the entrance and ended up in the hospital. When she was injured, my former husband didn't know what to do, so he called an ambulance, but as she was being carried away, she ranted and raved, her complaints echoing throughout the neighborhood. This incident led to the block party members finally distancing themselves from my former mother-in-law. Since they were merely members who had quietly obeyed under intimidation, there were no real friends around her. My son apparently still keeps in touch with my former husband. It seems my former husband is doing all the housework by himself since my former mother-in-law was hospitalized, and with increased expenses, he has started working a late-night part-time job. The two who had continued to torment me have now begun to fall in love. Considering my former mother-in-law's age, full recovery may be difficult and she may need care even after discharge. It's going to be tough, but I hope the two of them will do their best to live on. I'm steadily working on products for the opening. My son is helping with the interior decoration of the shop next door. Although the idea of moving abroad was scary at first, my son is helping me wholeheartedly, which is very reassuring. My son who rescued me from a painful in-law family. Now, as a mother, I will do my best to support my son as I finish the last piece.
The day after my surgery, I woke up to find my husband and my mother-in-law in the room. "Sorry, I was on a step ladder at work and I fell off."
What are you doing? You're a part-timer, aren't you? Why not leave that to the full-timers? Is this another of your meddling ways?
Can you not talk to me like that? I have to stay in the hospital for a while, so sorry for the inconvenience. Oh, speaking of, I just transferred this month's share of expenses to the bank account. I usually contribute to household expenses with my part-time earnings, but now I'm stuck here. I can't even cook, let alone shop. So I figured at least I can give them money. But my mother-in-law turned it down. We don't need your measly earnings. Can you stop making that? I'm doing my part face.
Huh? I had no such intention.
Intention or not, that's the face you're making. We don't need you. I'm here. Besides, how much can a part-timer really make?
It's not a lot, but it's enough to help with groceries.
Sure, whatever. My mom-in-law's unyielding attitude started to make me angry. I'm the one hurt, but neither of them has shown any concern. Then my husband, Ash, said something unbelievable. Frankly, you don't need to come back after discharge. You're just a liability. And it's a waste of time and money. Don't expect me to pay your hospital bills.
What?
He's right. It's your own fault you're injured. We're the ones who will have to shoulder the burden, so you should pay us. Why do the useless ones always cost so much? With that, Ash and my mother-in-law left the room. Both despise any form of expense. So it's no wonder they're angry about me being in the hospital, worrying more about money than about me. I've started to think I shouldn't have married in the first place. A few hours later. Oh, Miss Granite, long time no see.
Is that you, Jimmy? What brings you here?
I heard you got hurt, so I had to come visit. Just kidding. But I did hear from a former colleague that you're injured, so I took the time to come see you.
Wow, you didn't have to. Aren't you busy?
True, when I got headhunted a few years back, I was thinking of quitting because I wasn't used to the new environment, but thanks to your advice, I come this far. I will never forget that. Thank you so much.
You're making it sound like a big deal.
The person who came to visit me is a former colleague from the company I've used to work at named Mr. James. Everyone, myself included, called him Jimmy. After leaving the company, I would occasionally meet up with old colleagues, but Jimmy had been reassigned and stopped coming. Apparently, he was headhunted by another company and resigned. Back when I was still working at the company, he didn't strike me as particularly competent. I guess he found his calling somewhere and turned into a professional. But I didn't expect him to go out of his way to visit me in the hospital. Coming after seeing Ash and mom-in-law, his kindness felt particularly warm. I was still frustrated from what Ash had said to me earlier, so I vented to Jimmy. Really? Your husband sounds quite harsh. This isn't a joke. I'm genuinely frustrated and angry. Well, I don't get it. Where's your husband seeing incompetence? The Miss Granite I know was far from incompetent. She was a talented worker. You were sorely missed when you left the company.
Work and marriage are different, you know.
Fair point. I've never met your husband. Is he younger than you?
Yes, he is. That's why he's so attached to his mother. They're always together, and instead of defending me, he joins Mom in complaining about me. It's so annoying. Thanks though, Jimmy. Talking to you lightened my mood a bit. Once I'm better, let's go out for a meal and invite others too.
Absolutely. I'll come by again when I have some time. And with that, Jimmy left the hospital room. He's like a close female friend in some ways. He's the same age as my husband, but he's so much more mature in what he says and does. The difference between them makes me indescribable. Well, I chose Ash, so it's also my fault. Later, I began rehabilitation. During my hospital stay, all I could think about was wanting to go home as soon as possible. But if I go home, Ash and Mom-in-law will be there. I'd rather stay in the hospital. It's far less stressful. 2 weeks later, Ash comes to visit again, bringing mother-in-law with him.
What do you want? Didn't you say I shouldn't bother coming home if I'm incompetent? Yet here you are, visiting me again.
Hey, aren't you happy I came to see you?
Frankly, if you're going to complain, you don't have to visit at all.
Oh, easy there. Why are you so mad? I haven't even said anything yet.
See, that's why our child acts distant with you. You always have this cold demeanor. Consider other people's feelings for once. That's why you end up hospitalized. Here we go again. Whenever Ash is criticized, mother-in-law goes all in with her supported fire. Even though it's a conversation between husband and wife, things never move forward when she chimes in. That's why I stay quiet when mom-in-law intervenes. Arguing back would only lead to more counter-arguments, and I'd be the one blamed in the end. This time, I was patiently waiting for the storm to pass, but it showed no sign of stopping. Worse still, they started talking about Ash's girlfriend. My son was thinking of marrying someone else before you, but they broke up over a trivial argument. He would have made amends if he'd apologized, but his pride's so high. He said he'd never apologize because it was her fault.
Look, it really was her fault. I did nothing wrong. Sure, she had a good personality and was attractive. In hindsight, maybe I should have apologized. Then I would be married to someone useless like you.
See, that's what I've been saying from the beginning. Are you sure you want to be with her? I always knew it was a bad idea. This proves I was right.
It's just a fluke. I happened to choose an unsuitable partner this time. I'll be more careful choosing someone with similar sensibilities next time.
The conversation was unbearable. I'm not the patient type to keep quiet forever. Moreover, this guy just mentioned choosing another partner. It seemed like he had thoughts of divorcing me. Well, it'll be a dream come true for me too. Frustrated, I let loose my anger on Ash and mother-in-law. You would have a lot to say, but this is just ridiculous. You mentioned I'm an unsuitable partner, but you're not even good enough to be called that. Initially, I thought you were decent, but it turns out you're just a mama's boy. Plus, mom is so fond of her son. Why don't you two just live together forever? Then no one would end up this unsuitable partner like me. You two seem to get along so well, why not? After saying all this, I felt a mix of regret and relief. What was funny though was the way both of their expressions changed from surprise to tense as I was saying this. Who do you think you're talking to? Where are your parents? What's with the attitude? For someone so useless, you sure know how to run your mouth. Mom, there it is. You're quick to call people incompetent, but are you so well-rounded yourself? Must be nice being perfect at your job at home, huh? You're really something. When I sarcastically praised mom-in-law, her face turned even redder. How dare you act so smug? Who do you think you are? I'm the patient here. You little... Just then, Ash intervened.
Hey, enough is enough. From where I stand, you're way more incompetent than Mom. Mom raised me all by herself while holding down a job. Could you do that?
I wouldn't know. I've never been in that situation. But if I were a parent, I'd teach my kids not to look down on others. It's not cool to call people incompetent, especially someone who's hospitalized.
I see. Well, it's clear. We've never been a good match. Let's divorce. No point in staying together after all this.
Fine by me. You were talking about being cautious with your next partner, right? That implies we're done. I wouldn't want to spend my life with you. Or your mother anyway.
Huh. You do realize you'll be financially unstable if we divorce, right? How are you gonna afford these hospital bills? Let alone your living expenses.
I got injured at work, so I'll get workers' compensation.
And after that, got no plans, huh?
Ash had a point. Even if I plan on finding a job immediately after the divorce, there's no guarantee that I'll find one quickly. Plus, it will take time to see any income. The situation isn't looking good. I need to figure something out before it's too late. I have been vocal until now, but the moment I stop talking, They took the opportunity to go on the offensive.
So you haven't thought it through? Tough break. But what's said is said. We both want this divorce. If you promise to obey me like a housemaid from now on, I might reconsider. Right, Mom?
Yes, absolutely. Not happening. Can you please leave? You're polluting the air.
You're a piece of work. Don't say I didn't warn you. You threw away your last chance.
With that, Ash and Mom-in-law left the room, sneering. I have to find a job soon. My current workplace won't cut it. I'll go anywhere that offers full-time employment. Just a few minutes later, Ash returned to the room.
Hey.
What?
No, my boss was around. Just let me hide here until he's out of sight.
Come to think of it, Ash had been complaining about his current boss a lot lately. Apparently, Ash had been enjoying a slack job until this new boss came and shook up the department.
Why is he coming this way? Could he be next door?
What? Just then, there's a knock at the hospital room door. Ash shakes his head at me. I find his discomfort quite amusing. With a cheerful tone, I say, "Come on in." To my surprise, it's Jimmy who walks in.
Miss Granite, I had some free time, so I thought I'd come visit you. Wait, what are you doing here? Oh, Mr. James, good to see you. Huh? Oh, you must be Miss Granite's husband.
Yes, that's him. Did I introduce you to Ash, Jimmy? I think this is your first time meeting.
No, actually, we see each other every day. He's my subordinate right now.
What? Really?
It turns out, of all people, Jimmy is Ash's boss. Totally unexpected. Yet, it strikes me as an opportunity for a counterattack. I'm in a really good position right now. Might as well corner Ash gradually.
So, Jimmy, how's Ash's performance at work?
Hard to say in front of Miss Granite. He has areas for improvement, but the fact that he's sticking to it is admirable. We had drinks the other day, and he told me he respects me, so my expectations are high.
When I look at Ash, he's staring at the floor, fists clenched. He's probably thinking, "Don't say anything." So I decide to go ahead and speak.
You know, my husband mentioned something about his boss. Turns out that was you, Jimmy. But I wonder if I should say this.
Go ahead, no worries. Hey, Granite.
My new boss is so incompetent.
He doesn't get me at all, or I'm only drinking with him to gain his favor. I'll bring him down someday.
I recorded all our conversations.
He won't make a single mistake. And so on. Sorry if I had known it was you, Jimmy. I would have told you so much sooner. Upon hearing this, Jimmy's expression changes, and he shoots Ash a piercing glare.
No, you're wrong, Mr. James. This is all a lie Gwinnett made up.
Jimmy, would you like to hear a recorded conversation I have that says otherwise?
Yes, please.
Stop it.
I then play the audio for Jimmy where Ash was complaining non-stop.
Wow, I see. Thank you, Miss Gwinnett. Never thought he'd be saying stuff like this. No need for me to cover for him anymore. What? What are you talking about?
You've been swiping office supplies, haven't you?
What?
Did you know we have surveillance cameras around the office? Maybe you thought no one checks them. There have been complaints about supplies disappearing or running out quickly. When we investigated, we found you were the one taking them. I was planning to question you about it soon, but now I'll just report this to the boss.
Wait, what happens to me then?
That's for the boss to decide. Don't know if you'll even be able to stay in your current department or the company for that matter.
You can't.
Oh, by the way, Miss Gwinnett, how about working for a company? We'd be better off with you than him.
Really? Is that okay?
It's fine. We'll likely have an opening soon.
Jimmy turned to face Ash.
I'd be delighted to be under Jimmy. I'll make sure not to get too familiar with you.
Don't worry about it.
You scum.
You asked me earlier what I'd do after leaving the hospital. Remember? Now it's my turn to ask. What will you do without a job?
Shut up.
If you listen to me, I might consider letting you and your mother-in-law be my personal servants.
Who would do that?
Oh, I see. Then you and your mother-in-law will be out on the streets.
So, if I become your servant, will you help us?
No way. I don't need a servant like you.
What?
So you have to try your best holding hands with your beloved mom.
And so the episode came to a close. Later on, Ash was questioned by the company about the missing supplies and found to be reselling them. He was effectively fired. It was questioned by the police. Now he's being supported by his mother-in-law's pension. Life's being tough. Even putting food on the table is a challenge. As for me, I started working under Jimmy. Although it took a bit to get back into the swing of things, I quickly adapted and became a valuable member of the team. Work is really enjoyable. I guess as long as I have my job, life is good. If I ever consider remarrying, I think I'll consult with someone first.
$100 a month for groceries should be enough. What? Wait a minute, that's impossible. If you can't keep it down to $100, we're getting divorced, understand? You can't be serious. So you're not even willing to try, huh? I never thought you are the kind of person who never tried. Such a pathetic woman. I felt a sudden surge of anger when my husband said that. If he's going to mock me like that, then I'll prove him wrong. Fine, then I'll make sure we keep our grocery expenses below $100 a month. My name is Anne, a 29-year-old housewife. My husband John and I have been married for a year. John and I met at a group date and decided to get married after dating for a year. Anne, I want you to stay home and take care of the house once we're married. So I quit my job after getting married and became a full-time housewife. I did like my job, but starting a new life with John was more important to me, so I didn't hesitate to be a housewife. Our life after marriage was sweet and blissful. Every day, I made lunchboxes for John and prepared elaborate dinners. John always said, "Anne, your cooking is really delicious," and his enjoying meals made me very happy. Back then, he had a steady job, and he would always leave work on time and come home early, so the two of us used to have peaceful and happy meals together. But recently, it seems like John's work has become busier, and he's coming home later. He used to be home by 6 p.m., but lately, he often doesn't come home until after 9 p.m. It seems like the increase in work also means he is being counted on more by his superiors and is often invited out for drinks. So every Friday night, he goes out drinking and often doesn't come home until late at night. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't lonely, but John is working hard to improve our life together, so I can't complain. So I decided to make an even greater effort with the lunchboxes, giving John a taste of home. I put so much effort into them. They looked like something you might buy in a department store. So I started making an extra one for myself to eat for lunch, just knowing I was eating the same lunch as John, around the same time during his lunch break, made me feel like we were having a meal together, which was a great comfort. I sincerely hope that my homemade lunchboxes can bring some comfort to my husband, even if it's just a little bit. With that thought in mind, I pour my heart and soul into preparing them. John seemed to notice the changes in the lunches, and after coming home, he would cheerfully say, "Lately, you've been making such extravagant lunches for me. They're all delicious." When he praised me like that, I felt motivated to do even more. Since then, I've continued to work hard on the lunchboxes, making them both tasty and appealing. Before I knew it, cooking was becoming my hobby. I began to take pictures of the lunchboxes and post them on social media, and I was surprised to find that the posts were getting quite a lot of attention. Before, I only had a few followers, mostly friends, but the number of likes and followers started to increase rapidly. This was a first for me, and it was very exciting. I started to see comments from people wanting to know the recipes, so I began to post detailed recipes along with the photos. Sure enough, there were people who tried to imitate and create what I made. I received delightful comments like, "My husband said it was delicious," or "I included it in my child's lunchbox, and they requested it again." And this is a first for me. I was thrilled and was gradually getting into cooking more. It might be even better if prepared in this way. Maybe reducing the amount of this seasoning might bring out the sweetness of the ingredients. As I continued to cook while pondering these things, I found that I had created quite a number of recipes. I hadn't thought I'd pick up a new hobby at this age. My husband John seemed as busy with work as ever, spending less time at home due to overtime and working on weekends. But I didn't feel as lonely as I thought I would, because I used my alone time to study nutrition and even obtained a nutritionist certification. Time flew by, and 2 years of our married life had passed. I started thinking it might be about time to have a child. When I discussed it with my husband, his response was not what I expected. Before we got married, I remember him talking about wanting to have 2 kids, so his reaction was surprising. Maybe he still wants a child, but thinks it's not the right time, or perhaps there has been some change in his mind. Somehow, I felt a bit sad, as if we were not able to communicate properly as a couple. Looking back, I feel that John is less interested in me than he used to be. Our intimate nights have obviously decreased, and even when I try to initiate, I get turned down with excuses like, "I'm tired, sorry." He also stopped giving feedback about the lunchboxes I put so much effort into making. I felt increasingly lonely, wondering if this was the so-called marital doldrums. One day, amidst all of this, my husband made a surprising remark. "Anne, aren't you overdoing it with these elaborate dishes?" "Huh? I'm troubled by you squandering the money I earn." "Don't refer to it as squandering. And I haven't been making extravagant expenditures, you know. I'm simply using regular-priced ingredients and figuring out recipes to make tasty meals while keeping costs low." "That's impossible. Those visually appealing and tasty lunchboxes must cost a lot to make." "No, not at all. Just a little ingenuity and preparation can change the flavor quite significantly. Don't lie to me. I know you always take pictures of the lunchboxes you make and post them on social media." "Huh?" I didn't expect my husband to know about my social media, but it seemed like he hadn't looked through every detail. "You're always focusing on making it look good for social media. Stop showing off that you can make these luxurious lunchboxes. It's embarrassing to know that my wife is spending money to get likes. I can't accept my earnings being used to satisfy your need for approval." "Why would you say that? I'm not uploading pictures with that intention at all. Initially, I just wanted to share when I managed to make something delicious. And now I'm more focused on challenging myself to enhance the look and taste of meals with cheap ingredients so others can easily imitate. No matter how much I tried to explain to my husband, he wasn't willing to listen. "No need for excuses. $100 per month is more than enough for food expenses." "What?" I was flabbergasted. It would be incredibly hard to keep food expenses for 2 adults at $100 per month. Since John doesn't cook much, he may not know how much it costs. Groceries are not just the cost of the food ingredients. They also include things like beverages, seasonings, oils, and so many more. Keeping it under $100? Impossible. "Oh, hold on a minute. There's no way I can do that." "Why not? Haven't you been trying to save money by being resourceful with your cooking so far? If so, it should be perfectly feasible. If you can't keep it under $100, we're getting a divorce." "What? Divorce? No way." I couldn't understand why my husband John would say such a cruel thing. He used to be so kind. Why did he change? It's unfair to suddenly bring up divorce. If you have any complaints, speak up. Don't make impossible demands. I tried my best to initiate a discussion, but John wouldn't listen. "So, you're not even going to try because you think it's impossible from the start? I never thought you were so pitiful. I guess you're just cooking to satisfy your own need for approval." I was furious when John said that to me. If he's going to look down on me like that, I'll show him. Fine, I'll keep it under $100 for the month. No complaints then, right? Yeah, make sure it stays under $100. I was being stubborn. I didn't care that John had changed. I decided to focus all my energy on succeeding in this mission of keeping the groceries under $100 for a month. From then on, I started to make various changes to my cooking. I thought about various ingredients that could substitute for meat, and tried using tofu and fish cake. I also experimented with combinations of seasonings to create different flavors, like mixing bean paste and dried bonito into egg liquid to make an egg saboro that tasted like spicy cod roe. By doing so, I was able to significantly reduce the cost of groceries. In addition, I visited various supermarkets and searched online to find stores that sell pasta and drinks for cheap prices, and worked hard to save money. It was close, but I managed to keep the grocery bill under $100. I gave a mental fist pump saying, "Take that, John." However, John didn't ask about the results or anything. He just went on with his life as usual. I was disappointed that he didn't seem interested in something he had proposed. But I didn't know when he might bring up the issue of groceries again, so I decided to continue with the $100 grocery lifestyle. In order to make it as enjoyable as possible, I started a new project on social media, regularly posting about our life on a $100 grocery budget. As before, I posted recipes so that everyone could replicate my budget-friendly meals. I saw a comment about wanting to see a video summary, so I started uploading weekly videos on a video sharing site that neatly summarized what I was doing. To my surprise, I got a lot of feedback, and the number of subscribers on the video sharing site increased rapidly, enabling me to monetize it in no time. I was amazed at how the world has changed. The more people watched, the more motivated I became, and I kept coming up with new recipes. In the midst of everything, my husband John told me he would be going on a 3-day business trip the week after next. With that news, I figured there would be no need for me to cook, so I planned to return to my hometown. My hometown is quite a distance away, so I would need to take a plane. So I quickly reserved my plane tickets. Then, before I knew it, the day had arrived, and John left the house in the morning with his carry-on suitcase. He planned to drop by the office before heading to the airport. A little while after John left, I packed my bags and also headed to the airport. Since I was only going home, I packed light enough to fit everything into a backpack. Since I packed light, I was able to leave the house quickly and without any hassle. Upon arriving at the airport, I found a casual cafe where I sat back and enjoyed a cup of coffee while responding to comments on my videos and social media posts. Then, I heard it. I could hear John's voice somewhere. Even in crowded places, his voice is familiar, so I instantly recognized it was him. I looked in the direction of the sound and saw John walking in front of the cafe. Just as I was about to call out to him, I noticed a woman walking beside him. What's more, they were walking arm in arm, seeming rather close. I couldn't take my eyes off the pair. That was undoubtedly John. Is he having an affair? Was the whole business trip a lie? I was so shocked by what was happening right before my eyes that I was rooted to the spot for a while. My flight was due, so with a heavy heart, I boarded my plane and went home. My parents warmly welcomed me, but noticed my downcast expression and asked me what was wrong. My parents expressed their anger at John, saying what a jerk he is. That lightened my mood a little. After that, I decided to put John aside and enjoy my time at home. My mom's cooking was delicious, and it reminded me of when I first started living alone and worked hard to recreate her taste in my own cooking. After some much-needed relaxation at home, I returned to our house. Immediately upon my return, I hired a private investigator. I had never been more grateful for my advertising income from my social media. A few weeks later, the investigation results came in. In short, John was having an affair. It seems that his mistress was a junior at his office. Furthermore, after investigating in detail, it appears that their relationship had been ongoing for about 6 months. That timeline coincided with when John started working overtime and on weekends more frequently. Could it be that he was spending too much money on his mistress, and that's why he asked me to save on groceries? Thinking this, everything made sense. An intense rage against John welled up within me, pretending to be frugal when all he wanted was to increase the money he could spend. The audacity. I decided to take some action against John. From the next day, I stopped cooking for him. Huh? Where's my lunch? It's too tough to keep food costs down to $100, so I stopped making it. Here, figure something out with this. Saying that, I handed over $2. Huh? What am I supposed to buy with this? You can buy a convenience store rice ball, right? And maybe a ready-made sandwich or something. With the remaining change, you can get some cheap coffee at the office. Just about making ends meet. Don't joke with me. Can I satisfy my hunger with this poor meal? Even if it's $100 a month, we should be able to use a bit more. Nope, that's still barely scraping by. Spending $2 5 days a week for a month already takes up $40. You'd need to prepare a month's worth of dinners with remaining $60. Well, you could get by if you have instant noodles for dinner every day. Are you kidding me? If I keep having such unhealthy meals, I'll get sick. But if we don't stick to instant noodles around $1.50 each, we can't fit within $100. $1.50 for 30 days is $45. Add that to lunch, and you're already at $85. Then you've got to keep your monthly beverage expenses within $15. Once I explained this far, my husband John finally seemed to understand the difficulty of keeping food expenses within $100. Hold on a sec. So you're saying the lunch and dinners you've been making so far exceeded $100? No, I managed to keep it within $100 through my efforts. Then why don't we just continue that? No way. You and I are strangers now. That's why I'm teaching you how to manage food expenses on $100 without me. What? What do you mean? I thrust divorce papers at my surprised husband. Divorce? Why all of a sudden? It's not sudden. I've been preparing ever since I found out about your affair. Upon hearing this, John turned pale. What affair are you talking about? Pretending not to know won't do any good. I showed him photos proving the affair. I had these investigated and got the evidence. Now there's no escaping it. I'm asking for a divorce and compensation. John was dumbfounded with his mouth open. He probably hadn't expected to get caught. But still, he tried to argue back, perhaps because of his high pride. Sure, I may have had an affair, but won't you be in trouble if we divorce? You were a housewife. How will you get by once you're on your own? Your family is far away. What are you going to do? Wouldn't it be better to forgive your husband's one mistake and continue our married life? I was astounded. What a jerk he was to say such a thing. Sorry, but I have quite an income now. Huh? The social media posts you look down on have led to various work opportunities for me. I also get substantial income from ad revenue for my video posts, and I'm about to release a book of money-saving cooking recipes. Recipe book? You're releasing a book? To tell you the truth, I'm earning a lot more than you are, so I'm not worried about being alone. Really? John thought I was just a housewife and has been looking down on me. He was shocked in various ways when he found out I was earning more than him. He was no longer able to say anything and was looking down. Just fill out the darn divorce papers, will ya? If you put up a fight, I'm game for anything. I said that as I grabbed my bags that I had packed in advance and hightailed it out of the house. Afterward, through a lawyer, I communicated with my husband and the divorce went through without a hitch. I also managed to get alimony from my ex-husband and his mistress. Word spread like wildfire through his office about his affair because one of our mutual acquaintances works there. Folks are giving my ex the cold shoulder for betraying his wife, who packed him a loving, homemade lunch every single day. The mistress couldn't take the pressure and quit her job. My ex is apparently strapped for cash because of the alimony and money he showered on his mistress. He can't quit his job, so he kept working at the same company, dealing with an awkward atmosphere at work. On the flip side, I moved into a lovely place with a state-of-the-art kitchen, and I'm cooking a lot more. My recipe book got published, and sales are through the roof. I plan to keep cooking a bunch of dishes and live a fun-filled life.
My name is Mary. I recently turned 40, and for some reason, my legs cramp up when I stretch. Could it be because I've been working remotely and not getting enough exercise? No way, it's because I gained 11 pounds over Christmas, right? I should have asked Santa to help me fix my lack of willpower and my tendency to procrastinate, especially since my go-to phrase is, I'll start dieting tomorrow. Today, I want to share a story from when I was working hard to lose weight after giving birth. I hope you'll listen. This happened about 10 years ago. Back then, I was busy raising my 4-year-old daughter Michelle with my husband Thomas. People say girls are easier to raise than boys, but it really depends on the child. Michelle was a handful, always running around the moment I took my eyes off her. Juggling her, household chores and work was tough. But it was fun too. Thomas's company had gone bankrupt over about a year before. So, we were living off his unemployment benefits and my income as a web designer. Fortunately, I made decent money, so we weren't struggling. But then, another issue came up. It was my sister-in-law, Rebecca, who had just turned 20. We hadn't been very close with Rebecca before, when her live-in boyfriend dumped her. Turns out, she was pregnant, but not with his child. She had been honest with him, hoping to marry the child's real father, but got dumped instead. She even tried to get back with her ex, but that was a no-go. Still, she was determined to have the baby and chose to become a single mom. That's fine, it's her life. But then she started relying on Thomas. Rebecca had been working temp jobs but quit them all after getting pregnant. Probably because it was awkward for her, as her ex-boyfriends worked at the same places. If you quit your part-time job, you will naturally lose your income. So, she had no income and not much in savings. and she started asking Thomas for money and favors. It's not like they were close, she was just taking advantage of the situation. Thomas, being the serious guy he is, was seen as boring by Rebecca and somewhat disliked. But Thomas adored his much younger sister, even if she didn't feel the same way. Their relationship had become distant as she entered her teens. So, in Thomas's mind, his demanding sister was just his adorable sister asking for help. If Rebecca relied on Thomas and he was willing to help within his means, I wouldn't mind. But honestly, I was quite puzzled when I had to help with chores at my in-laws' house or accompany her to the OBGYN. Because Thomas was unemployed, I had to focus on my job more than ever. I used to leave work early to pick up Michelle from daycare, but now I'm back to working regular hours. Thomas had said, "I'll come, so I'll do whatever I can." But ever since Rebecca chose to be a single mom, he'd forget to pick up our daughter from daycare and neglect chores at our home, only to go help at his parents' house. I'd come home to find laundry half-folded, near an open dresser, or wet clothes forgotten in the washing machine. I've even had to leave work in a rush because he forgot to pick up our daughter. To be honest, it was more than puzzling, it was downright irritating. His mom, Linda, is there at his parents' house, and she works just like we do. Why does Thomas need to help out so much there? Even now, thinking about it makes me angry. But I try to understand, thinking, giving birth is a life-changing event, and he's probably worried as a brother. I had to hold back from snapping. "Were you this helpful when I was giving birth?" A little while after Rebecca moved back in with her parents, I noticed something. Actually, it might have started even before that. Our joint account was dwindling. At first, I thought Thomas was withdrawing living expenses. The amount seemed about right. But then it started to increase. Why are we spending so much? Dinner hasn't gotten fancier, and there is no special event at Michelle's daycare, I wondered. Around that time, Thomas had become a Rebecca-only taxi. To use an old-fashioned term, he is a handyman. He'd drive her not just to the OBGYN, but also for local shopping, to a new mall, to the movies she wanted to see alone, and even to dates with new guys. I did think, why are you happily driving your pregnant sister to dates? But kept quiet, every family has its own dynamics. I decided to keep quiet, at least until Rebecca safely gave birth. Then, one day, after I had to rush to pick up Michelle because Thomas forgot, he said, I gave Rebecca some money because she said she needed it. What? I couldn't comprehend what Thomas was saying. Which account did you take the money from? Your unemployment benefits? No, from our joint account, the one for living expenses. What? That's when I finally understood where the missing money had gone. Thomas had been willingly giving it to Rebecca. Most of the money in our joint account came from my earnings. Thomas's unemployment benefits were minimal. Don't make decisions like that on your own. We are saving that money for Michelle's future. So what? It will accumulate again. But the money won't come back on its own. Are you going to replace it? Why should I? Because I want to save as much as possible for Michelle. Then we should also save money for my sister's child. Rebecca can't earn money right now, so it's okay for us to support her, right? Thomas said this with a smirk, as if he couldn't understand why I was upset. Don't nitpick. We have money, but Rebecca doesn't. She doesn't have an education and she's going to be a single mom. We all need to support her as a family. Thomas always acted like he was some wise and understanding husband and brother. I'd say, it's your own fault you don't have an education. Sure, you might not have money, but I don't get why another family should support you who has time to hang out with guys. Why don't you just get a job, Thomas? stop talking about maxing out unemployment benefits. What are you so mad about? Stop taking your work stress out on me. Excuse me? That's not what this is about. Oh, by the way, I gave Rebecca some baby stuff she wanted when she came over the other day. What? Which ones? You know, the stroller we had upstairs and the baby blanket. She also wanted some household items, so I gave those to her too. Bring them back. The household items are fine, but at least bring back the baby stuff. Those are memories from when Michelle was born. Come on, we're not using them anymore. Memories just collect dust. If someone can use them, they should have them. If you have a problem with that, should we get a divorce? Is that what you want? For a moment, I was speechless at Thomas's harsh words. I had been thinking we'd use the stroller and baby blanket again if we had a second child. But maybe he's right. Maybe we won't use them again. That's what I thought. Fine, sign this. What I pulled out of my bag was a divorce application. Just a week ago, I had impulsively picked it up at the city office, tired of Thomas's excessive affection for Rebecca. I can get a divorce anytime. We have a child, so it's not just about me. Let's cool down. I had been carrying it around as a sort of emotional support, never thinking I'd actually use it. Thomas was momentarily shaken, but then snapped, "If you're going to act like that, let's get a divorce," and signed the divorce application. 3 months have passed since the divorce. For the first month, I had days when I cried, thinking all this over something so trivial. But by now, I was completely over it. I did the right thing dumping a jobless, sister-obsessed husband, I thought. Then, out of the blue, Thomas contacted me on my mobile phone. He said he wanted to talk about Michelle's child support. Since we had agreed he would increase the monthly payments once he got a job, I thought maybe he had found work and agreed to meet. But when Thomas showed up at the restaurant, he looked terrible. He was wearing an old t-shirt, worn-out pants that looked like the elastic had given out, and flip-flops. Thomas should have been living at his parents' home with Rebecca and Linda, so what on earth happened? He certainly didn't look like someone who had landed a job. Seeing my puzzled expression, Thomas quickly spoke up. "Please, let's live together again." "Are you serious?" I divorced him because I thought he was nuts, but this time I couldn't help but wonder, is he okay upstairs? Who in their right mind would live with their ex-husband again? What a chore. I know, I'm asking something crazy. No, it's not just a little crazy, it's very crazy. You're right, but you're the only one I can turn to. What do you mean? I got kicked out of the house by Rebecca, my sister. I'm sorry. I laughed. Why? I ran out of unemployment benefits, have no job, and can't pay you child support. I'm broke. Makes sense. Anyone would toss out a wallet that's not good. Thomas was visibly downcast by my casual response of, "I see." But to me, it was all within expectations. I never thought he'd come crying to me, but I did think that the longer he went without finding work, the more likely this would happen. After all, Rebecca never really liked Thomas as a brother. She was just relying on him because he had money. Wait a minute, though. During our divorce, Thomas didn't cheat or anything, so I didn't get any alimony, just child support. I kind of wanted to get back at him. Is this my chance? A wicked thought crossed my mind. You must be hurting. You were so kind to her, and yet Rebecca is so cold to you. Exactly. I feel like she's repaying kindness with ingratitude. The baby is due soon. But I have no intention of helping her anymore. Right, you should stick to that. You've been trying hard, Thomas. You're the only one who understands that. Really? Linda doesn't get it? Mom says I'm the fool for letting Rebecca push me around. I almost spit out my coffee at his mom's spot-on command, but I coughed to cover it up. Thomas is earnest, which is good, but it also narrows his perspective. Linda probably sees through that, and that's why she's not helping Rebecca. Linda is right, Thomas is the fool here. But kind-hearted me won't say that. Wow, that's harsh. No one sees the effort you're putting in, Thomas. Exactly. Mom and Rebecca can't see things clearly. That's why Rebecca falls for the wrong guys, and why Mom ended up divorcing Dad. You're the one saying that after causing our divorce? But you know, you're the only one who really understands me. I'm sorry for all the arguments and for mentioning divorce. I almost blurted out. Thanks, I'm having a blast now. But held my tongue. I quickly changed my smile to a more solemn expression. How about we give it another try? Yeah, let's become a family again. Just as I thought, everything is going according to plan. That's when it happened. No way! Michelle, sitting next to me, started crying loudly. Dad never picks me up from daycare. I'm tired of waiting. I want Mom, only Mom. Caught off guard by Michelle's words, Thomas turned pale. To be honest, Michelle often says, I don't need a dad who won't even pick me up. So I knew she would resist if Thomas tried to reconcile. That's why I led him to consider reconciliation. If Thomas had said, let's reconcile, Michelle wouldn't have understood the word and the rejection wouldn't have been so smooth. Because Thomas used words Michelle could understand, she got his point and rejected him with all her might. Good job, Michelle. It's probably harder for Thomas to be rejected by Michelle than by me. But man, if Thomas had used words Michelle didn't understand to propose getting back together, this plan might not have worked. It was a bit of a gamble, but I'm glad it paid off. Thomas cautiously approached the crying Michelle. It's Dad. I don't have a dad anymore, and my dad wasn't like this. You're not my dad. You're gross. I hate you. What? I'm your dad. I'm not some old man. My dad didn't have seaweed all over his mouth. Gross. Apparently, Michelle sees Thomas's scruffy beard as seaweed. Makes sense. He used to shave when we lived together. Wait, Michelle, look closely. It's your dad. Come here. Ah! A bad man is here! He's going to take me away! Thomas was taken aback by Michelle's genuine cries, a mix of shrieks and wails. Did you switch careers from dad to suspicious person, Thomas? Stop joking and explain to Michelle that I'm her dad. I won't do that. You're not her dad anymore. Didn't you hear, Michelle? To us, you're just some old man. What? Why are you pretending to be dad? It's creepy. I never said I wanted to remarry, but you are just assuming. I picked up the crying Michelle and comforted her. As soon as Michelle was in my arms, she stopped crying instantly. How wonderful. This kid could be an actress someday. But why? We had a good vibe going. Where was the good vibe when you were just venting and feeling good about it? What? I was just nodding along. Michelle almost got abducted by a suspicious person because of you, so I'm not in a good mood. Wait, you were just nodding? You weren't serious? Yep. Enough with the teasing. Ah, right. I said this to Thomas, who looked like he was about to explode. Michelle and Linda have heard everything so far. What? What? I pulled out my mobile phone from my right pocket and naturally Thomas's eyes were glued to it. Rebecca's name was displayed on the screen. "What does this mean?" Thomas asked, almost groaning. "Didn't you notice I was fiddling with my phone while you were talking?" "Now that you mention it, you were doing something." I called Rebecca's phone and left it on, putting my phone in my breast pocket. "So, all the terrible things you said about Rebecca and Linda were heard over the phone." "What? Are you okay? You said quite a lot about Linda and the others, like they can't see things clearly and fall for the wrong guys." Thomas turned pale at my words. Just then, Rebecca's voice came through the phone, berating Thomas. "Enough is enough!" I quickly switched the phone to speaker mode and asked, "Ah, Rebecca, did you hear all of that?" "It's all clear," Linda responded. "Really? What a useless brother! Don't ever show your face again." "I raised you and Rebecca better than this. Maybe it's time to distance myself from you to cultivate that insight you claim to have." Thomas's face turned even paler at Rebecca and Linda's words. "No, that was just a subtle nuance in my words. Why, Rebecca is also at fault. She used me." "Maybe so, but you did it willingly. It's your responsibility. If you're going to complain, you shouldn't have done it. It's uncool." "What?" Thomas was at a loss for words at my response, but his silence probably meant he understood somewhere deep down. After pondering for a while, Thomas asked again, "So, are you serious about not remarrying?" "Well, it seems he can't go back to his parents, and I'm his last hope as an unemployed man. Marriage isn't something you can easily return to, just like our baby supplies won't come back from Rebecca. You've lost not just your marriage, but also your family home. Maybe this will teach you to be more aware of your surroundings." Thomas hung his head in silence. Finally, he seemed to realize the gravity of what he'd lost and what he'd done. In the end, he simply said, "I'm sorry, it was my fault," and bowed his head without asking for a remarriage. Fast forward 10 years. Rebecca chose the path of a single mother, but failed in 2 marriages. Thomas, after a long period of unemployment, was taken back into his parents' home by Linda. He eventually found a job, but got manipulated by Rebecca again when she returned home after her second failed marriage. He is a lost cause, incurable. Now, most of his salary goes to child support for me and contributions to Rebecca and her children. He doesn't work for a big company, and his take-home pay is small. He can't even save money, so we might see that ragged Thomas again soon. I'm glad I divorced him. As I've said, he is incurable. As for me, Michelle has grown up a bit, and the sudden fevers she used to get have decreased, allowing to me work energetically. Thanks to that, I've reached a leadership position at work. It's hard for housewives to climb the corporate ladder, and even if they do, the scrutiny is harsh just because they are women. So, my career progress is considered exceptional. It was tough, but I'm glad I stuck with housework, childcare, and my job. From now on, the plan is to live life without forgetting to smile, just Michelle and me.
Why are you acting so high and mighty over a mere $300?
We don't need your chump change.
Laughing, my son and daughter-in-law looked down on me, hurling hurtful words. I've supported them for 10 years, knowing they were struggling. Seeing the two of them never settling into steady jobs, I always held back my complaints, wondering how I could help. And this is the thanks I get? Why did I ever think of helping them? I believe that one day they'd appreciate my efforts and change their attitudes, but that day never came. Isn't that answer enough? They've taken 10 years of my time and drained my hard-earned savings. Yet they scoff at my assistance, saying it's not enough and just spare change. I've given everything for my son and his wife without saying a word for 10 years. But that ends today. My name is Susanna, a woman in her 50s. My husband passed away, and now I live alone. We have one son, David. He moved out after college, married a woman, and started his family. Their home is close to mine, but truth be told, we don't get along. Son and daughter-in-law was what you would call a reason. David married Anissa, a co-worker from his first job after college. Anissa left the job when they got married, but less than a year later, David quit his job. Apparently, he got into trouble with his boss. David thought he could quickly find another job, but things didn't go as planned. He struggled to find a suitable position and eventually gave up on working altogether. Anissa showed no signs of wanting to work either, and they quickly fell into financial hardships. To help, I started giving them $300 a month. They were grateful at first, and I hoped they'd eventually stand on their own. But 10 years later, my monthly support seemed like a given to them, and not a gift. One month, when I was busy with family events and couldn't meet them for the usual handoff, they came knocking late at night.
Mom, you have to give us our money. Are you forgetting things in your old age?
Every time David teased me, my exhaustion from consecutive days would overwhelm me. I'll give you the allowance another time. Can you please leave for today? But Anissa, with her face burning with anger, shouted,
This happens every month. Just because you're my mom-in-law doesn't mean you can treat me this way?
and grabbed me by the collar. Suddenly wide awake from the shock, I handed over the already prepared $300 to my son and daughter-in-law that day.
You should have given it to us straightforwardly from the beginning. I don't want to raise my hand against my mom-in-law,
she said.
That's right.
David chimed in.
Please listen to what we have to say. If Mom gets dementia in the future, we're the ones who will be taking care of her. Wouldn't it be smart to be in our good graces now?
Their audacity infuriated me, but if I retaliated and displayed a domineering attitude now, I might injure their pride. I didn't want them ending up like David when he had left his job, possibly never regaining their footing in life. With that thought in mind, I swallowed my frustration, smiled, and simply said, I'm sorry, accepting their words. I retrospect, I think I had a wrong approach from that time onward. However, my overwhelming desire for them to somehow get their act together prevented me from seeing things clearly. But that wasn't the only unpleasant memory with them. One day at work, I got a call from a neighbor who has always been kind to us.
Susanna, can I talk to you for a moment? It's about your son and daughter-in-law.
Oh my, I'm so sorry. I'll be right over. Apparently, when the neighbor returned from shopping, there were signs of a break-in. And after checking the security camera footage, the culprits turned out to be my son and daughter-in-law. Though the room was a mess, fortunately nothing was stolen. The neighbor, knowing our situation, chose to contact me first instead of the authorities. I left work early, got in touch with David and Anissa, and the three of us went to apologize. I am deeply sorry, I kept repeating, while David and Anissa showed no signs of remorse. Although our neighbor was visibly upset, after agreeing to cover the cost of the broken window, the matter was settled. But on our way home, David and Anissa made a shocking statement.
Why are you old folks so narrow-minded? We just wanted to borrow a few things.
David scoffed. I let out an incredulous "What?" But without even glancing at me, Anissa added,
Exactly. What did we even do? We might have broken a window and ransacked the place, but we didn't steal anything. Isn't she overreacting?
To which David nodded.
Exactly.
I couldn't fathom their justification and stayed silent the entire time. I regretted not standing up to them and expressing how I felt. Could say it was my weakness that I couldn't do that. The episodes of David and Anissa's unchecked behavior continued to stand out. Thankfully, apart from the incident with the neighbor, they didn't trouble anyone else. I continued giving them their allowance, and whenever they pleaded for something, if it was within my budget, I'd buy it for them. David wanted toys and gadgets to fit in with his friends. Anissa craved branded items so she wouldn't feel inferior to others. Their demands escalated over time, and they began to rely on me for just about everything. It wasn't just about money anymore. On my days off, they'd call me over to do their household chores, working me tirelessly. We all need money to survive. They had neither the means nor the will to earn their own, so I had no choice but to support them. No matter how exhausted I was, I worked hard. Even when I was drained from work, I managed to do the household chores they asked of me. As a result, my health deteriorated. Dark circles formed under my eyes, my skin broke out, and I constantly felt dizzy. Seeing me like this, my son and daughter-in-law joke.
You look like a monster.
Anissa pointed at me and said,
You've given up on being a woman.
I was too drained to even respond to their cruel words. I knew I was reaching my limit. But I believed that if I didn't keep going, both they and I would be ruined. So I pushed through, doing my best to keep moving forward. Deep down, I wished I could lean on someone else. Admit I didn't want to push myself anymore. Then one day, while doing chores at their house, a minor incident led to a big argument. I was worn out and had no patience left, so every little thing they did irritated me. Anissa snapped.
All this fuss over just $300?
David, taking her cue, said,
I don't need such chump change.
and handed back the $300 I had just given him.
If you want to give us money, bring a better amount.
They laughed, looking down on me. That was the last straw for me. I get it. I'll stop then. Without thinking about the future or their well-being, the words just spilled out. They tilted their heads in confusion. But when I started packing to leave, they burst into laughter.
Mom, stop joking. Without us, you'd be all alone. You wouldn't survive without your precious son and daughter-in-law.
Mom-in-law, when did you become such a joker? If that joke wasn't funny, you had me worried for a second.
Thinking I wasn't serious about stopping the financial support, they continued to mock me.
Go ahead and try. But if you do, we'll cut ties with you. Let's see if you have the guts to live all alone.
Come on, our spineless mom-in-law can't do that, right? You want to take back what you said in no time.
Seeing their cruel behavior, I finally woke up. Why was I sending them money, buying them things, and doing their chores? What was in it for me? I was just being taken advantage of. They treated me like a housemaid, and even at my breaking point, they acted this way. They might be my family by law, but I couldn't recognize them as such with their behavior. Sorry, but I'm serious. Don't regret your words later. Even after I said that, they just laughed, thinking it was a joke.
Go ahead and try. But you'll regret it. I can already see it.
David's words ignited a fire within me. I was determined to make them pay. I would make them realize how valuable I was to them and how wrong they were to treat me so poorly. As I packed my things to leave, all I could think was how I'd make them suffer. First, I cut off all the financial support I had been providing to my son and daughter-in-law. No more money, no more financial aid, and no more household help. For someone who had lived for their sake, this act of not considering them at all was a first for me. I could finally rest without thinking about them. I could spend my money on myself and only do household chores to my satisfaction. I realized how liberating it was to live this way. They said I'd never be able to cut ties and live alone. But this life, free from others' control, was exactly what I had been longing for the past decade. I decided to take another step to corner them. The apartment they were living in was actually rented in my name after they lost their previous home due to financial troubles. Of course, I was the one paying the rent. If I was cutting off all support, it made no sense to continue paying the rent. So I contacted the apartment manager and decided to terminate the lease. The manager, aware of our situation, was understanding and agreed. In a month, they'd have to leave the apartment or the police would be notified. That night, I messaged them. If you don't leave the apartment within a month, it'll become a police matter. They read the message immediately, and within minutes, my phone rang.
Mom, what's going on? Where are we supposed to live?
David yelled. I could hear Anissa panicking in the background. Did you forget I was the one paying the rent for that apartment? I told you I'm cutting off all support. So it's only natural I end up the lease too, right?
We'd never agreed to that. We thought you were just stopping the monthly allowance, not everything else.
David's entitled response made me chuckle. After all the hurtful things they said, they still expected me to support them in other ways. Their audacity was dizzying. I had given them everything. My money, my time, all for their sake. All because I wanted them to have a self-sufficient life. But it was a mistake. The more I indulged them, the more they took advantage. In that case, I should have made my stance clear and made them listen to me from the start. I was the one who sent them money, provided financial support, and did their chores. No matter how you look at it, I held a higher ground compared to my son and daughter-in-law. They should have shown respect and gratitude. Yet they treated me like a mere housemaid, a tool, an ATM, and even had the audacity to mock me when I was at my lowest. Why did I try so hard for them? Even when they were unreasonable, I endured without speaking up. All they did was take advantage of my kindness. It took me reaching my breaking point to realize how selfish and ungrateful they were, and that they never truly saw me as a family. They may have even seen me as useful, but never as a family member. Why didn't I see this sooner? Why did I keep doing my best until I felt like I had reached my limit? Why did I keep giving and believing? My past actions now seem so pitiful. I believe they've someday become independent, but it was all for nothing. Regretting the past, my anger towards them surged. I needed to confront them, make them admit their wrongs, and apologize. Unless he admits his past sins and apologizes, he will not be satisfied. Feeling this way, I spoke up again. You thought I'd stop the allowance but continue other support? How naive can you be? David tried to interject.
But...
I cut him off. No buts. Do you realize how much you've relied on me? You should be grateful. Instead, you've taken advantage of me. Why would I want to keep supporting you? Listen, your lives have always depended on me. If you upset me even once, and I felt like not helping you, that would have been the end for you. It's a good thing I was so naive. I kept hoping you'd someday stand on your own, that you wouldn't always need my help. I was such a kind-hearted mom.
Yeah, Mom is kind. You don't really want to abandon us, right? You said things in the heat of the moment, and now you can take them back. We forgive you, Mom. Let's try to be a family again, okay?
Don't be ridiculous. I've opened my eyes. No matter how hard I tried to support you, you never wanted to be independent. You just wanted to live comfortably on my dime, right? David, sounding panic, replied.
That's not true. We did want to be independent, but it's hard. Neither of us feels motivated to find a job. We did our best, but it wasn't enough.
I almost laughed at his words.
Did your best? I've watched you two for years.
You never tried to find jobs or live frugally.
You just enjoyed carefree life on my dime.
Listen, Mom, we're truly grateful for everything you've done. We know we owe our lives to you. We need you. Let's start over.
What? Why would I need you? One's an unemployed man who's been jobless for a decade, and the other's fake housewife who only thinks of herself. Why would I want you in my life? Do you know how much I've sacrificed for you? I've worked every day to provide for you, even doing chores on my days off. I'm not foolish enough to want that life anymore.
Don't say that, Mom. We need you. Without someone like you to support us,
No matter how much I tell him, David doesn't listen to my opinion and tries to push his own opinion. Before I could reply, I heard,
Let me talk.
and Anisa took the phone.
Mom-in-law, I'm fed up with David's selfishness too. Men should work and support their families, but he just plays around. I regret marrying him every day. I'm a victim just like you. Please help me.
Anisa was trying to save herself at David's expense. When I was stunned by his attitude, Anisa continued speaking. She continued,
I'll do anything. Be your housemaid, whatever you want. Please don't abandon me.
After those words, I could hear son and daughter-in-law arguing again over the phone, fighting over who gets to speak. Suddenly, due to the loudness, or maybe they bumped into something, the call got disconnected. Days went by without another call from my son and daughter-in-law. It seemed their relationship deteriorated significantly after that incident, leading them to decide on a divorce and go their separate ways. They blamed each other, even demanding alimony, causing a lot of disputes before the divorce was finalized. After the divorce, both tried to reach out to me. However, by that time, I had already blocked their numbers, so I never heard their side of the story. David started working part-time at a factory, day and night, managing to make ends meet. On the other hand, Anisa, in tears, fled back to her former in-laws' house. When she confessed everything to her former step-parents, they were furious. She was brought by her former step-parents to apologize, but she cried throughout, making it hard to understand her. Since then, I'd been living for myself. For 10 years, I was bound by the presence of son and daughter-in-law, never truly cherishing my own time. Living a life centered on myself felt incredibly refreshing and irresistibly appealing. Losing son and daughter-in-law left me all alone in the world, but I came to see that as a blessing. I don't know what the future holds. There might come a time when I can't live just for myself anymore, but for now, I've decided to live solely for my own sake.